Good day, my name is Tony, and today we're going to look at various techniques on how to put detail and damage on your cosplay props. Please note, however, that today we'll only be discussing foam work and not painting techniques. So let's get started. Alright, so let's first look at what we'll need for this. Obviously some foam, a pen or pencil, something to trace on the foam, a cutter or a scalpel or an xacto knife. Try to use a new blade because you really need to be sharp on this. Some little bits of tube. I've got a solid plastic one and a metal one, the different diameters you can play with. Some tweezers to help with the little bits and to poke some holes as well. Soldering iron, which is going to go very hot and will be able to trace on the foam. Heat gun to mold, to seal the foam, and then like a big metal ruler or something strong enough to work with a soldering iron. So this is the kind of result we're trying to achieve with the first technique. Basically the brick patterns on the wall and the boards and the rivets and the nails on the drawbridge. So for this first technique, just grab your closest piece of scrap foam and start drawing some lines like this, a bit of a brick pattern. And then towards the bottom, let's put some lines to represent the boards on the drawbridge. Put some dots as well for the nails. Actually, we can start using the tweezers to make some little holes in the foam directly. So you just want to pierce the upper layer of the foam. Then using your cutter, you're going to score the foam gently along the lines. Don't need to go very deep, 1-2 millimeters. All you want is to break the surface of the foam. Follow the lines. Then using your little tubes, you can create some perfect circles here. I'm using two different types of tubes. One is metal, the other one is just hard plastic, like a straw. And the idea is the same. You don't just want to break the surface of the foam. Then we're going to use the heat gun. Basically, the heat gun is going to contract the foam, which means that all those cracks and all those cuts will show even more, and they'll stay there. It looks like I haven't done my tubes properly because the surface hasn't cut. You see the circles have disappeared with the heating, so I'm going to redo them. Press a bit harder or turn a bit to cut the foam, and that should do the trick. Alright, so using the same trick, let's move to the new technique. So here I'm just drawing lines to do a separation in the foam. Same thing again, using the heat gun is going to expand those cuts. And then we'll move to technique number 2. So I've traced a couple of shapes on the foam, and now I'm trying to cut them out, keeping the blade as vertical as possible to make sure I'm able to pop those shapes out of the foam. The idea here is to put them with an indent to create a three-dimensional effect. There you go, that's the first part popped out. Now on this part, using the first technique, I'm going to create some sort of ventilation grate pattern or speaker pattern just by crossing lines on it. And once again, using the heat gun, I'll be able to make those lines expand and stay there. Speaking of heat guns, you have to be a little bit careful with those. They're definitely not hair dryers. The heat guns go up to 400, 600 degrees Celsius, which will definitely burn you. There you go. Now I can put my little part back into the main panel, and if I leave it a little bit in recess, then it looks like a ventilation panel. I'm now finishing the second part, and this one I'm going to leave an indent. So it'll look like a button or like a plate that's attached to the main panel. Here the two parts are back into their spots. The third technique is more of a freehand technique if you want to do some custom drawings or some curly bits like this. Here I'm drawing a leaf, and basically I'll try and engrave it with a soldering iron. Now when you use a soldering iron on EVA foam, it creates toxic fumes, so you really want to mask for this. Also, my iron has a very long shaft there, which makes it difficult to draw. You can find some where the point is much shorter. Now I'm tracing on the foam with the iron. So you want to press really lightly because this iron is really hot, and it will just melt through. It'll go right through the foam if you're not careful. This is quite a cool technique if you want to add some like pretend engravings to armor bits and such. Now that we have those techniques, we can start adding some damage and effects onto the armor and props. So here I'm going to pretend I've been hit by a sword or a claw. And for this I'm going to first trace the impact line, and then a second cut, which is going to be at an angle. I obviously don't cut all the way through here, just about halfway through. And then to make this cut a little bit less clean, I use the soldering iron and go through the gap there to melt it all. The iron can also be used to create some cool bullet impact effects. Here I'm going at an angle to show some glancing shots. Basically you just push it in and then you flare up the edge a little bit to make it like it's penetrated the metal or whatever. So let's create a third one here. You see all those fumes, right? Make sure you have a mask. Don't breathe that. Now if I want to make a bullet hole, well, I'll just go vertically straight into the foam. It's going to melt right through. And then I expand the hole a little bit, make it like the armor's been damaged on the outside. You don't want a neat little hole, you want something that shows a bit of an impact. So there you go, some quite simple techniques to show a bit of a damage and detail onto your foam. The sky's the limit really, you can do whatever you want, just make sure you don't hurt yourself. And remember, there's still the paint job after this. You've now reached the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and if you did like it, please like and subscribe. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Keep creating.